welcome you to this episode of UD Listens. And it's my real privilege today to be able to welcome as our guest one of our professors who recently received the highest teaching award that the university offers. And so it's my real privilege, and I'm so excited to be able to introduce to you Professor Rasika Mudalige. So Rasika, welcome, Professor of Biology. And welcome to UD Listens. It's great to have you with us. And now you and I have known each other for a while.
Yes.
So, but our viewers haven't. So you've been with us how many years? I lose track of time. So
now this is the 13th year going.
Are you kidding me? This is the 13th year? You and Laylath have been here for 13 years?
13 years, yes.
So you came to us from where? You were in Hawaii, if I remember right?
Hawaii, yes. I did my PhD in Hawaii and then did a postdoc for about 3 years. So
at Hawaii?
In Hawaii, yes.
And you just got tired of the good weather and wanted to experience winter here.
Hawaii is a good place to enjoy, but I don't recommend it as a good place to live.
Really? Why is that? Why is that?
It's very expensive, and then it is remote in the sense that you do not get many opportunities to talk to your peers in the field. And then once in a while, once a year, we usually try to go to at least one conference.
But it's a major trip if you do that. Right. Yeah, and if you're going to New York from Hawaii, that's a...
It's expensive, and it is also very time consuming. So because of that, here you have regional conferences here in Iowa. So we go to Iowa Academy of Science with our students. And then we go to the ASPB, American Society of Plant Biologists meeting. We have a Midwestern section meeting. And that's a good opportunity for our plant biology students to give presentations, so I go there.
So your background is in plant biology, PhD in plant biology with a postdoc.
Yes.
So, that's your graduate work. You did your undergraduate work. Where did you do that?
Undergraduate in University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. And then I had the opportunity to choose a subject as an honors subject. So our education system is a little different. So when we choose science, we stay in science. Okay. So we don't have what we call a liberal arts education. We do have science subjects, so I learn only science when I go to the university. Okay. So I learned both botany, zoology, and chemistry for the first 2 years. First 2 years, and then in the third year you can choose a major, so to speak.
A specialty at that point.
Yeah, specialty, and then a minor subject. So my major was botany and the minor was chemistry.
Okay, and that was in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is home.
Yes.
So where's home in Sri Lanka? What community?
Sri Lanka, Western Province. It is about 25 miles away from the capital city. It is still considered somewhat rural because it is not close to the main roads. You have to travel somewhat away from the main road.
Into the mountains?
No, not into the mountains. Okay. It is towards the seaside.
Okay.
So we are about 6 miles away from the sea.
I don't know if I shared this with you. I was at a meeting in Washington, D.C. I know I shared this with Chaminda, who's also from Sri Lanka, but his father, or his uncle, was the ambassador to the United Nations.
Oh, yes, yes.
So I sat next to the Sri Lankan ambassador to the United Nations and we had dinner together.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm like, this is a small world. And we started to talk, and he said to me, have I met you before? And I said, Mr. Ambassador, I don't think so. And I said, but you know, we've got 3 faculty members at the University of Dubuque are from Sri Lanka, and I mentioned your name, Layla's name, and Chaminda's name, and he stood up. He said, Chaminda? I said, well, that's my nephew. So I'm like, here we are, from all over the world. Yeah. And you get back to Sri Lanka.
Yes.
This year you probably won't be able to.
Probably not, and if the COVID gets a vaccine, we would like to go next May term if possible. And something that I want to establish is that that we are trying to go back home to Sri Lanka, and then we are just very close to another university. And then that university and our university has signed the MOU.
Oh, nice. So you can take students with you as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
So I want to take the students, and then the students can stay at my new house for free.
So is that, are you about done with it? I knew you were building it.
Yeah,
oh,
so by the end of this year it will be done. And then so I want to make it like an ecological center for the region.
Oh, what a tremendous.
So the students or even the tourists who want to come, who want to learn about the ecology of the country, and then go hiking, go to the waterfalls. We have 6 waterfalls nearby within a half an hour driving distance. So we want to take the students and to show different floristic zones. We are in what is called the intermediate zone.
So between probably a rainforest maybe, or not?
But between the low rainforest and the mountain rainforest.
And you're close, okay, so you are, that's where I remember the mountains. I remember you building your home in the mountains, so you're a high enough altitude that you're probably, it's probably a pretty temperate climate.
Yes, it's very nice climate. It's about close to about 3,500 to 4,000 feet above sea level.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it is perfect, and nights are slightly cool, so it is nice sleeping weather.
That's even better.
And then the early in the morning sweater weather, but by mid-day you don't need a sweater. You can go walk around without.
Well, maybe I can be one of your students someday. That would be.
Well, you're welcome to come. And I told all the faculty members that if you want a vacation away from UD, we have a place, and you can stay there for free. And then as long as you can cook and maintain yourself, you'll be fine.
Well, how far of a flight is it from?
It is a long flight. That is the downside about it.
Probably 20 hours maybe?
Yeah, close to 20 hours, yes.
So you go probably from Chicago to, I would guess, probably Europe?
Yes, you can go either Europe, so Chicago to London, London to Sri Lanka, or you can go Chicago to any Mid-Eastern country. So that is the preferred route simply because it is cheaper than flying to London. So we go from here to Qatar, or Doha, Qatar, or we go to Abu Dhabi, UAE, I think United Emirates.
So you have to be patient on a flight like that. You have to be patient.
Yes.
So how is your son? Now you have a son who's in middle school, will be going into...
No, he's in high school already.
He's in high school already.
Yes.
So did he have his first year of high school this year?
Yes, he just finished the first year in high school.
His name is?
He's Tarindu, and it is Taru for short.
All right, so...
Taru means stars.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
So he's in high school here.
Yes.
How does he do with those long trips?
He is okay because there's computer gadgets to play with, and then there's usually the Middle Eastern ones, they have a long list of movies to watch.
So he's okay.
Yeah, so 3 movies and he's there already. So.
Well, and I imagine he has relatives and cousins when he gets back, so there's something to look forward to.
Yes.
So it's not too bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
He loves it. Not only that, because he get to meet the relatives, we take him to different places. So we go to the waterfalls together, to the rainforest, montane forest. The very first time he was about 4 years old, and then we went for a 8-mile hike about 10,000 feet above elevation. And then
I'm surprised he'll ever hike with you again after that.
He's at some point about halfway through, he sat down and he said, "I'm not going anymore."
Well, I can understand that.
So we had to carry him afterwards, and then we tried hiding and tried to find out whether he will try to find us. Nope, he was sitting there.
He wasn't moving.
He wasn't.
Well, that's funny. That's a funny story. So it'll be fun. I mean, soon you'll be doing a college search for him.
Yes, I will be.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be, it's exciting. It's going to be hard for you as a mom.
Yes, it will be.
The house will get quieter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all part of the process of having a tight family. And I think it probably, as a professor, my guess is it helps you be a little more empathetic with students, particularly first-year students who are transitioning.
Yes.
You know, by August, they're like, I can't wait to get out of the house and I'll be on my own. And then the first week or the second week, homesickness kind of kicks in, and you know, you've lived with that rhythm for many years.
Yeah.
So tell me about your teaching here. So you're plant biology.
Yes.
I have it on good authority you specialize in orchids.
Yes, I do.
And I want to talk about that. But tell me about your experience with students here, about what you see in that transition from high school to college, and maybe more importantly, or as importantly, what you see kind of happen in their progression from their first year to they're kind of like mature and metamorphosize into, it's like, is this the same?
Yes.
Is that kind of your experience as a faculty member?
Yes. Yeah. Some students come with all the preparation and they are ready to jump in. Right. And then some students do not have the preparation and sometimes reluctant to jump into. And for the plant biology class, because it's interesting, because there are lots of students who come with the idea that they want to go to med school. And the first thing that you hear is, why do I need to learn about plants if I'm going into med school?
And what's the answer?
So I tell them that, do you know about 90% of the medicine that you are prescribing, either coming from the plants or the fungi or any other biological organism? Do you know that? And they don't. And then I also tell them a funny story that it's not very funny to the person, actually it happened. There was a guy who wanted to get a psychological effect. It's a, what we call a hallucinogenic.
Like a psychedelic.
Psychedelic, yeah. And he used to eat the flower of a plant which is called the angel's trumpet. I don't know whether you know. It's a beautiful plant.
Yeah, no.
And then, so sometimes he eats too much, and then he was rushed to the emergency.
Yeah.
So the first time, the physician that was at the emergency room immediately knew what antidote to give, and he was saved. Because
he or she knew
what the plant is.
What the plant was, yeah.
Yeah, immediately knew what the plant is, immediately knew what the antidote is.
And had they not known that?
Exactly. So the third time, when he was rushed to the emergency, the doctor did not know what the plant was. It took a few seconds to find out, or a few minutes to find out what the plant is and what the antidote is. By that time, the person was dead.
Well, my guess is when you share that story with students, they're suddenly paying attention in a way they weren't paying attention before.
So I tell them that if you pay attention in this class and learn how to identify plants, you might be saving somebody's life one day in an emergency room. So think about that. So
interesting. So of the students that come in, first year students that think they want to go into medicine, or the healthcare field, what percentage do you think start there, and then what percentage by the time they graduate are still in that area of emphasis?
Fewer than you think. Some of them, which we think is could be successful getting into med school and can do whatever she chooses to do, they change their mind halfway through.
And why do you think that is?
Her father was a doctor, so she came into the university thinking that she wants to go into medicine. And then she started working with me on orchids, obviously. And then, so she was working with me for about 3.5 years. And then on the third year, when she was going from junior to senior, she all of a sudden, Dr. M, I changed my mind. And I said, why?
Did you say it exactly that way? Did you say
And then she said, well, I don't think I'll be very patient with patients. And I don't have the patience to deal with people, sick people.
Well, that's a good bit of insight for her.
And then she said, I enjoy doing research much more than I enjoy learning about anatomy and physiology or things like that. And then she said, I think I will go for a PhD program in molecular biology. And I said, well, all the better for you. And then she's the one who applied for University of Connecticut and then got into the molecular biology program. Only person who went from a small school and directly went into the PhD program.
Wow. Wow. At the University of Connecticut, yeah.
Yeah, so now she's at University of Connecticut. She got close to $50,000 in scholarship money, so until she graduates with her PhD. So this is, I think, second 2.5 years gone, I think. No, 3 years gone. Okay. I think 3 years gone, yes.
So she's clearly doing well, and
yes,
it's got to make you very proud.
Yeah, I am very proud of them. And then there's another person who she wanted to get into physical therapy, and she stayed with it. And she said, I'm not going anything else, I'm going to physical therapy. And for every college, every university she applied to, she got in.
Okay,
and
wow,
then
that's impressive. Those are both tough programs to get into. Yeah.
Yes. And she got into University of, St. Ambrose University.
Okay.
So it is closer to her home, so she decided to go there. And then she probably is graduated or graduating next year.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
You've been teaching for a long time, so can you tell in the first semester, do you have a way of saying, they're going to be going to graduate school, they're going to be going to med school, or is it just impossible to decide and you're always surprised?
Some students I'm not surprised at all. We knew from the beginning get-go that they are going to be doing very well. And some students surprised me completely. And then very, very happy surprise sometimes. There's one student who entered the bridge program. And then he ended up doing research and getting good grades. So the first year, he barely did his work, and in the second year, he passed, but, and we encouraged him. He said, well, you can definitely improve. And then in the third year, he started doing research, and he got better and better, and then he got into biochemistry program. I don't know, or is it the pharmacy school? One of the two.
So, I mean, that's got to be very rewarding. I mean, it's rewarding for all of your students to see their success, but it's got to be even more rewarding for students who had that extra bit of trouble, challenge in their lives to get to that point where they finally, something clicks.
Yes.
And then along with something clicking, there's a kind of confidence that they didn't know they had. So I imagine that's a big part of what you do as a faculty member here, is helping students identify their abilities and the confidence that they didn't know they had. How do you go about doing that?
Well, it's not just me, actually. I have to give a big thank to the entire science department and big shout out, because they are very good at, if I cannot reach a student, there will be another professor who can reach that student. It is a student who did research with Jerry Zucker and I think Kelly Grusendorf. And then, so what they do is that they find a person who you have a kind of instant rapport with, and then they kind of develop from there. Sometimes they come a little bit intimidated, a little bit don't know what to do, and but as they go along, especially in the research lab, it is so rewarding to see their maturity.
I mean, my research is in a cubicle by myself and in my own head. So a research lab is a much different environment. What do you find, what are some of the the key ingredients that helps the student become a really good researcher? What are some of the attributes that they need to have in order to be successful in the research lab? Because that's different.
Yes.
A different kind of research.
Right. So two things. One thing that we teach the student is the hands-on skills are different from thinking. So you have to have both sides of the coin. And then it is much easier to get the hands-on experience, but the thinking part is a little bit more difficult. You have to put a little bit more time invest your time on the student to give them the background information, ask them to read, and then ask them to prepare and understand.
They have lab journals, as I recall.
Yes, they do lab notebooks, and I'm very strict on lab notebooks. And some of the students do not like it in the first few years that I'm teaching.
Oh, and I think there's a reason for that strictness, though.
Yes, and then even the other teachers are now stricter on the lab notebooks, because I always tell them, if I am doing an interview to find out whether I can take a student in, I look for two things. One is whether they have a good lab notebook. If you have a good organized lab notebook, that's a good sign that they are actually doing it methodically and
doing serious,
yes,
careful research.
Right.
Yeah. And my guess is the lab notebooks, though, one of the reasons for that to be serious and careful is, my guess is, in the kind of following the research strand that you're following, there are occasions when you can go back to projects.
Yes.
And so that you're kind of you're accumulating your own library, your own research library. Is that?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I have about 25 books right now with different students who did different projects, and then usually it is a continuation project. So, for example, that I'm right now working with genes that tolerate cold climate, and then we initially wanted to find out what kind of orchids do we have in Iowa. That is how the project started.
There's a wild orchid, if I recall right.
Wild orchid, yes. Yeah. And this orchid put their leaves out in October, and it has a green leaf until next April.
It has a green leaf from October to, so in the middle of winter it has a, so it's got to have a real tolerant gene. So.
Yes. So, and then after the winter, the toys come about, they put a flower, and then by that time the leaf dies.
So they'll from October, they kind of generate the flower through winter.
Yeah.
The flower blooms in spring?
About May, early May, late May, something like that.
And then how long will the flower last?
It is already seeded by August.
Wow.
And then, which is very fast for an orchid. Orchid take about 6 months to 8 months to mature the seed pod. And so that is how we started. So my very first student found this plant, and I was like, what an amazing plant. And then in the second student actually isolated the genes that are induced by cold.
Really?
Yeah. And then the third student, so these clones are very small, so it is not the full entire length of the gene. So the third student selected few of those genes and isolated the entire gene.
So these are students, they weren't classmates, they were successive students building upon the research that went before them. So the research project is a continuation.
Continuation, yes.
Wouldn't it be fun someday to bring all the students together that worked on that one project?
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
So
a reunion, an orchid reunion we could have. Yeah.
So now the current collaborative student is putting that gene into a model plant to find out whether you can make them cold tolerant.
Well, that's going to be that'll be a big breakthrough.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be from a market viewpoint.
Yes.
For growers.
Yes.
That would be a significant.
Wonderful. Yeah. So.
How did you get interested in orchids? Where does that? There are lots
from
of.
Hawaii.
Not from Sri Lanka.
No, not from Sri Lanka. No,
so what was it about orchids that kind of captivated you?
Well, the very first thing is that you need to find an advisor to give you assistantship to come here to do research. So I wrote to many universities, and most of them I was in the short list, but I did not get the opportunity to get an assistantship. So there was a person who was in Hawaii who was doing orchid research at that time, the flower color research, and then she was looking for a student. And there were two of my colleagues who were from Sri Lanka who was doing PhD at the time in University of Hawaii. So they recommended me to the professor, and that is how I got the first opportunity to work with the orchids.
So you were part of a continuation of students working with that professor? And
no, they were working with another professor. Okay. They just used to know her, okay. And then they recommended me to her.
Okay. So how would you describe yourself as a teacher? If I were to take a class, see, I know the answer to this question from students I talk to. I want to hear how you would describe yourself as a teacher. Why teach? Why not just spend all of your time in the lab?
Well, I was kind of driven to teach because even from the when I was very little, my favorite plaything is to wear a sari and then have a blackboard in front of me and then teach. And then I didn't have anything. I used to teach to plants.
Well, they can't talk back, right?
Yeah, so, and then they have touch me, not plants. So I touch them, so they all go to sleep. And then I start teaching. So by the time they open up, I touch them again, then I start teaching.
So you were just a little girl at this time,
so,
okay.
Yes, and then when I was much older, that there were different competitions and things like that. So when I was a graduate student, there was a competition which is the Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. It's called CETA, the college that I work within University of Hawaii system. And then so all of the people get to present their work at the CETA symposium. And it's a competitive symposium. And then every time I submitted something, I won the best presentation.
Okay,
and then,
so you knew at that point you'd gotten some encouragement and some affirmation. And
yeah, so and then my advisor always told me that you have to go to a teaching position because you are a very good teacher. So, and that's one of the reasons that I chosen teaching. And I think the important thing is that I'm good at explaining things in simple forms. Okay. So very difficult concepts. So if you go to the genetics, for example, genetics is a difficult concept. Yeah. So you need to explain this difficult concept in simple terms. Okay. So I think I do it well.
And where does that come from? How did you learn that? Because that's a real gift. That's not easy to do.
I don't know. I cannot really explain because it is, I always tell that genetics is like math. Some people get it, some people do not get it. So you have to try it in your head until you get to the point that you get it. Right. So you have to address both sides of the story, people who get it immediately and the people who do not get it immediately. Okay. So I started as a person who do not get it immediately, that I have to do it again and again in order to get it. So I know how to tell the students, go through it a couple of times, more times.
Well, that makes you more empathetic with the students, right, that are struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of have the best of both worlds here. You have your teaching world and your research world, which makes for a busy life. Yes? Yeah. So you've been here 13 years.
Yes.
My guess is you've had other opportunities, and so why here? Why have you stayed 13 years? I'm happy you have, and I want you to stay forever. But why here? What is it about this place that kind of grabs you?
Originally, I came here and I had a very difficult time adjusting to two things. One is that a small school atmosphere. I was not from a small school, so and then I did not teach undergraduate students. I have very few undergraduate students. I did teach undergraduates, but very few. And then I taught back home to the undergraduates. But teaching back home and teaching here is two different worlds. Okay. Because there it's a very meritocracy system, and then only a very few upper crust goes into university. And the university is all paid for. They are public universities. And then to teach them is very easy because they have already done the hard part of learning to get into the university. Okay. So from there to build up, it is very easy job. Here, most of the students are underprepared, and it's a very difficult job to teach everybody, very well prepared ones, very underprepared ones, and then in the same classroom, and to get them to the same level that I want them to get to is a difficult task.
My guess, it's here in the States, it was in rural areas, there used to be one-room schoolhouses.
Yeah,
so,
it is very similar to that,
yeah,
yes.
Where a teacher would teach, you know, 1st grade through 8th grade, and
yes.
So you almost feel like you're juggling,
yes.
but it's very time intensive.
Yeah.
But my guess is it's very time intensive, but I can imagine that there are times when it's even more rewarding for you as you see students who really struggled earlier, as we talked about, and then really a light bulb clicks on. Is that part of what just kind of keeps you here? Is that light bulb experience? Is that
one thing is that, and the other thing is that I appreciate the fact that it is giving opportunities to students who will not get opportunities otherwise. So because, for example, that if I think about my background, I am a first-generation college student. You know, to look at me, you will not think that I'm a first-generation, but I am. And then I am even more underprivileged compared to students here. Students here at least have the opportunity to see around themselves the colleges, universities, and then. So in my situation, I'm in a small rural village in Sri Lanka. And then the only thing that is going for me is that my mother and father is relatively well educated compared to the other people who are in the village.
So there was a kind of a drive from them.
Right. So they drove me to more and more to school. And then the better I do, they encourage me even more. So, but when I went to when I went through the university entrance exam, and when I went to the university, they said, well, you are on your own, kid, now, because I don't know how to help you anymore. And then, so the good thing that is that I think that us also, UD, can learn from those situations is that in our system, our seniors, if we are in the 3rd year or the 4th year, the people who are going before us, what they do is they give us all the study material for GRE to TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. We have to do that in order to come here. And then how to do all the past papers for every single class that we are taking. All of these are given to us.
So you're working together.
Yeah, so, and then even the notes, if we ask them for their older notes, they will give you the notes. And then, so we have lots of things, resources that we can draw upon when we are going to the next one.
That's wonderful. That's, but that's, I mean, what a transition, not just from your educational experience, but as you moved from Sri Lanka to Hawaii and Hawaii to here. I mean, Hawaii is a very diverse state. Yeah. And as you come to Iowa, you know, Iowa itself is not real diverse. Right. And so you come as a person who, the phrase I would use would be from new, emerging, or underrepresented populations. Right. So how has that transition been? Explain kind of for me what that has been like. It's at first it was a little tough. I think I felt most comfortable in Hawaii out of the 3 places I have been, well, 4 places I have been in. I have been to, I did my master's in LSU, Baton Rouge. So, and when I went back home to teach in a university there, so I taught for undergraduates for 2
2.5 years. And then I applied to do the PhD. And then first I went to University of Hawaii. And then in the middle, well, I don't know whether I should get into this story, but you would know things that I did not talk about myself.
Only when you're comfortable.
So I am comfortable. It's okay. It's past. So I got married, not to Lalit, to a different person. Okay. And then, so he was in New York, so I had to go to New York with him. So I stayed in City University of New York for almost 1 year. Okay. And I had a very, very difficult time, and it was not a successful marriage. And then I had a very difficult time keeping myself together and mentally happy. And then the good thing is that this is also a lesson for our students. I always tell them, don't burn bridges. As always, have a good relationship with the teachers. So when I went from Hawaii to New York, when I was ready to go to Hawaii to New York, I told my advisor that I have to go to New York. I need to be with my husband. And then she said, it's okay, but in case if it does not work out, remember you still have a place here.
Oh,
so,
how kind.
Yeah, so it was, and then that actually saved me, because when it did not work in New York, I came back to Hawaii.
You knew you had a landing spot.
Yeah, so, and then I already did, at that point, I did already 3 years of research. And then my plants that I have transformed with color genes are already growing up. And then I continued my research, and I got my PhD within another 1.5 years.
So your plants grew up and blossomed, and you got back to your healthy mental state. Yes. And your healthy landing place, and your life just really took off. So my hunch is you understand students in a way that maybe a lot of others can't sometimes.
Yeah. So sometimes I think back and I was like, sometimes people think, why did it happen to me? And then at the time I was thinking, why did it happen to me?
Of course,
I didn't do anything bad for anybody, and I should have a good life. I thought I accumulated good karma all my life. So I was thinking, why did it happen to me? And then, and later on, I thought about it in a different way. Good that it happened to me, because I have so many resources to fall back on when I'm in a tough situation. If it was a Sri Lankan woman who got married and came here to New York to be with her husband, then she would have had a very hard time, because divorce is not very accepted in Sri Lanka. So she cannot go home. Now, she doesn't have anything to fall back onto. She's probably dependent on the husband, and it would have been a very difficult situation for that woman. And so I always think it is a good thing it happened to me, because I have so many things I can fall back onto.
Well, and it makes you even a better you.
Yeah, and also it also, on the other side of the coin is that I was not a very empathetic person towards people who are going through depressions and mental sadness. I think at that point I was thinking of, they are weak. That was what I was thinking.
As they'd say here in the States, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Bootstraps, yeah. So, and that is how I thought. I thought, how arrogant of me. So until I went through that, I did not realize how difficult the situation could be, and how difficult, how deep you have to dive in order to get that mental strength. And then not all people do have the same background, same upbringing, and all the resources that I have to fall back on. So, and then I think I became a much more empathetic person after that incident.
So the teacher researcher was also becoming the student, which makes for a better teacher and researcher in our life experiences. So. And I know, one of the things we're in a part of our lives right now as a society that is just really on edge. There was the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and there's the recent events Atlanta, and it's just happening all over. And, you know, it's not easy,
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yes.
I can only imagine it because I'm this, but it must not be easy being, the phrase we would use here is kind of a black-brown individual in this culture right now. How has that transition or that experience been here in our community? I mean, it is
tough, and certain times I get not sad but discouraged, because I feel like if you think about it, I told you that there were people who say that go back to your own country in Dubuque, Iowa. So I told them that, a couple of people, I told them that, think about it, that my country has given me almost 20 or almost 14 years of free education to me, and then make me a whole person, who good teacher that you are now getting benefit from. Right. And then my country, the poor country, has put so much of effort and time and things into my upbringing, and you are getting the benefit of it. So you should not be asking me to go back to my country. You should be thanking me for not going back to my country and contributing to your society. Think about it that way.
That's a wonderful insight.
Yeah, so, and then I told them, and then a couple of people actually thought about it. Some people just say it for the saying's sake without thinking about it. And then I also told them that that is why that I go to Sri Lanka and then try to contribute as much as I can. I still feel guilty about not going back and then teaching there. That's a whole different story, but whatever the circumstances are, I did not go back. So coming back to your original question, why did I stay here? Because I feel like I'm giving a good opportunity to people like me. It's a different world, different country, but they are also not people who are who do have lots of resources. They are also coming from rural areas. So they are first generation college student. And then I feel like I'm giving something back to that community.
Well, I know you are, but yes. In a very significant and big way. That's one of the real privileges I have, Rasika, is and I've shared this with our trustees and others. I get to see, as you know, I've been doing what I do for a long time.
Yeah.
And one of the most important, you think about things about our lives. We have a discrete amount of time, and what do we want to do with our lives? Yeah. And as in my vocation and job as president, I think a significant part of my job is to do the work that facilitates or creates the space for professors like you to do what you do really, really well without having to worry about the things that I worry about. Yeah. My job is to help you to even do better with your job on behalf of students. Yeah. And I think a lot, about, I know many of our students. I've had, I think there's been something like 16,000 or so have graduated in my presidency. So I don't know all of them, but I know a lot of them. Yeah. And I see how their lives are transformed here. How do you, what's hard for students who are there's a commonality, I think, between first generation college students and regardless of racial ethnic background. There's a commonality. Sometimes it's lack of exposure to really quality teaching in middle school and high school. Sometimes it's lack of exposure to quality materials. Sometimes it's lack of exposure to support at home and encouragement at home or role models. Mm-hmm. What do you say to students who are first generation, whether they're African American, Asian American, Sri Lankan, Native American, Hispanic, Latino, Latinx? What do you say to those students? Do you see kind of, you're still young, but do you see the young Rasika in some of those students?
Yes, I do. And then something that I tell my students, I think one of the things is that they are a little bit reluctant to come and talk to a teacher. So I always tell them, I have a booming voice and I'm sometimes very demanding, but that does not necessarily mean that you cannot come and talk to me. Anybody can anytime come and knock on my door and then talk to me. And then if you have something going on in your family and you cannot do an exam, come and talk to me. By not coming to the exam is not the right thing to do, but coming and talking to me and then finding out whether you can have some kind of a relief from where you are at, that is the right thing to do. So I think our students are still not comfortable talking to the teachers.
They're learning to trust.
Yeah.
So, would you say that's part of it? They're learning
yes.
to be able to trust the teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the students who have succeeded, they always had a relationship. They built a relationship with a faculty member. That is one of the main reasons that they do succeed.
Well, and there are a lot of places that do this on campus, but science does it so well, just across the board.
Yes.
Those relationships, and I think still have Friday coffees, and
right.
You've got everything going on over there. Yeah.
So that is the good thing, that because like people like Dale and Jerry and Kelly and everybody else, so there is some person whom you get a good rapport with. So some of them might not like me, but they like somebody else in the department, and then they go and talk to them and then build a good rapport, and then that helps them to go to the, so some of the students, once they get to trust the teacher and once they get a good relationship, they don't want to disappoint us. So they do well in those classes because they always say, I don't want to disappoint you.
Wow, that's a wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful, when you get to that point in your relationship. Yeah. So I could talk to you forever, but we're going to run out of time. Yeah. And so what would, so you've been here 13 years. When you look at the university 5 and 10 years from now, I like to ask this question. If you could wave your magic wand, what would you want, where would you want to see the university be 5 or 10 years from now? If you could wave your magic wand and say, this is done.
Yeah, so well, I think of it from the science perspective. I have to tell you that. So I still think that the sciences, there's a lot of room for improvement. One is, I really appreciate the collaborative program, but we need a little bit more resources to maintain our equipment and then get new equipment on. So I'll give you a good example. So that, so they talk about PCR all the time, right? And then it's actually not completely 100% true. There's a little step before the PCR, which is called RT. So you do the RT-PCR in order to diagnose the test. Okay. So now the students have learned about these things. And then we do have a PCR machine. So I tell them that if you have these little pieces and all the reagents together, you can do your own COVID-19 diagnostic test here. So I can tell that because we do have a thermocycler PCR machine that we can do that job. And there are many other machines like that. So PCR is like bread and butter of my part, the molecular biology. And then, so things like that, which will be a little bit expensive, but it will be worthwhile investment.
Well, there'll be a big investment because expensive investment, but an important investment because it benefits students.
Benefits students.
It helps improve them, helps position them for even better graduate opportunities and their research. And, okay.
So that is something that I would like for in 5 to 10 years' time, to have a little bit more equipment. And that is one thing. And then the other thing is that I think our students are not taking the opportunities that is given in the university, even now, that we can do more research with the students if the students are willing to take a chance with us. So only a certain type of students have the drive and to think that, okay, I will do a research project. And some of the students, they don't know us. And some of the students, they want to go home and not stay here for the summer months for various reasons. I understand that, but at the same time, I wish that especially the minority students take a little bit more of a chance with the teachers and then go into the STEM subjects, because the STEM subjects are the big job opportunities right now.
Science, technology, engineering and math.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so for example, right now, the healthcare workers, if you know how to do a simple diagnostic test, you are up there. So most of the diagnostics tests that being done at Washington State, it was developed by a university in the Washington State, and they are the ones who are doing, 5,000 tests a day. All of these are done by graduate students who are running day and night.
That was my alma mater.
Oh yeah.
It was wrong, University of Washington, but the wrong department. My alma mater. But those are, though I appreciate you sharing those, and that's probably a good place to end. And I'm really hoping I've got trustees and other investors that are watching and have heard this, because lots of time people are they want to invest in things that tangibly impact the experience of students. And so this is one of the areas that you just wouldn't think of that would really benefit their experience here. And so, you know what? You've given me a charge now. The teacher has given me a lesson. So I just want to end, Rasika, by thanking you for just for investing your life here with all of us and the life of your family here. How is your niece, by the way? She's back.
She's doing very well. Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here. And then I adjusted, I learned a lot, and I think I grew as a teacher here. And also, I learned a lot of life lessons too, which I wouldn't have had if I did not come to UD. As I said, I do appreciate that. Only thing that gives me some amount of not feeling so guilty about making the transition to stay in the US is because I feel like, although it is not from my country, I am actually helping somebody who is underprivileged, who is doing so that is my good thing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, no, the privilege is mine and ours, and maybe in this reciprocal relationship as students go and research with you in Sri Lanka, maybe some of those students stay and contribute.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that back and forth relationship. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be wonderful.
So
we actually wanted to do a research project with elephants this time with the Clapathy students, but we couldn't find a student to go with us. And the second thing is, because of the COVID, we decided to shut it down.
So they'll be next summer.
Yeah. So
next May term will be a good time to think about that.
Yeah.
So, Rasika, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.